Welcome to the Intrazone Roadmap Pit Stop April 2023 edition. This is a bonus monthly show that answers the question, what's rolling out now for SharePoint and related technology in Microsoft 365? I'm Mark Cashman, Senior Product Manager at Microsoft, here to help set the ongoing record straight. This month, I talk with Ben Truelove, a lead designer on the OneDrive and SharePoint team, who's focused on making Microsoft lists look beautiful. You'll hear Ben and I talk about recent user interface updates, narrowing in on the new experiences when working with and creating views, and what was released this past month, applied filters, making it easy to see how you're seeing your information, and it's a really nice update. Beyond the breadth of the lovely lists updates, we'll focus on everything that landed this month, a few related items, and the always fun teasers looking into next month. This podcast is your 30-minute pit stop to stay ahead of the ever-curving Microsoft 365 roadmap. It is now time to kick back and get informed about all the tech that rolled out in April 2023. We start with employee engagement, whether it's you, the employee, wanting to be engaged, or you as the employer wanting to engage broadly across all employees throughout your company. Well, these features are then for you. First up, Project for the Web integration in Viva Goals. Integrations into Viva Goals will help save you time and energy by automatically updating your key results and projects through connections to the other applications from Microsoft and third parties. These integrations allow data and information to flow from the connected applications into Viva Goals, so the results and initiatives are up to date. Viva Goals is launching this new integration with Microsoft Project for the Web, which will enable users to automatically update initiatives and key results in Viva Goals based on the progress in your project in Project for the Web. Staying with Viva a little bit, going mobile, Microsoft Viva Mobile SharePoint site navigation. This means that Viva Connections on mobile gives you the ability to browse and reach other SharePoint sites, whether they're hub sites or regular sites. It's really the navigation that's the important thing. It exposes the navigation to get to those other sites from Viva Connections. This gives you an easy way to access and browse other sites, which we hope will reduce overall friction. Viva Connections, if you didn't already know this, is your gateway to the overall employee experience, and now more inclusive to the rest of your SharePoint-based intranet. Moving on and mixing a little bit of the end-user benefits when developers make connections, the Graph Connector content results in the experience switches to now results that are in line when you connect to multiple additional sources using various connectors. You'll see soon through the Graph Connector results a merged inline experience of all of the content, whether it's coming from SharePoint, Office.com, or if it's coming, of course, from third-party and additional services. This means that when you do a search result, the Graph Connectors will help populate the search results with the other apps more seamlessly alongside the common Microsoft Office content, instead of what is currently today a result cluster that experiences putting all of that, external content or external from a connector perspective right in the middle of the page. Now it's ranked and sorted just as you would expect with Microsoft search results. And at the same time, with some of this innovation, a closely related outcome is that you will also have this if you've stood up the Bing for Enterprise experience, connecting the Bing search results with your internal work results where you can tab between them. Now in the Work tab or in the All tab, you will also see that common search experience. And this is across browser, desktop, Bing, Microsoft 365, and more. Make the connections through the graph and have those flow through so you have a really nice mix of content, all of your content, wherever it resides, however you connect to it. If you have any questions or concerns, or you just want to tap somebody who knows what they're doing with connectors, you can send an email to Microsoft Graph Connectors Feedback at service.microsoft.com. I'll put all of this and more in the show notes. Last, for employee engagement, eDiscovery Premium Records Management. Now you can discover the document version that was shared at that time. If you have multiple versions, you will be able to see which version was shared. This will help you meet regulatory obligations for both retention and eDiscovery of shared content in your organization. And the eDiscovery Premium offering now offers this ability to discover the version of the content at the time that it was shared. This is facilitated by a new records management capability that enables you to automatically apply retention labels and retain the version of files shared as cloud attachments in email via Exchange and chat via Teams. There's a lot of information here on how to get started with records management and eDiscovery and the documentation and any information as far as wanting to go premium. I'll put those links in the show notes so you can learn, read more, and make a really informed decision on how you want to be able to retain your content, especially if versions are important. Okay, let us audibly context switch from eDiscovery to Discovery about the design of Microsoft lists. Let us move to our interview with Ben Truelove, principal designer, who is focused on making lists more usable and beautiful. Now is that time when you get a really clear understanding of what something looks like and why, or what's happening on the back end beyond the what is the feature. And to talk about one particular feature and a little bit around it, because there's a lot that goes into our Microsoft Lists product, both look and feel and functionality. We have Ben Truelove, who is a principal designer on the OneDrive and SharePoint team focused on lists, and probably a lot more. And I'll let Ben introduce himself. But Ben, welcome to the IntraZone.
Hi, thanks, Mark. Yeah, I've been working on lists for a while now, and it's a personal favorite, the purple and orange. I'm super happy to talk about all the highs and lows I've had lately working on lists.
Well, over the years, certainly in the last 2 to 3 years, we've been talking about lists a lot across a lot of what you and the team focus on. And the big push, certainly in the revamping of the SharePoint list lowercase l to Microsoft lists uppercase L, has been the look and feel, the experience, making it easier, making it look great across multiple devices, lots of entry points, and there's just been so much that your team has been working on. And again, a lot of the kudos and feedback are, hey, lists are a lot easier and they look great. Just to start today's conversation, to zero in on some of the newness, is the list views in general, speaking broadly. Can you talk a little bit about some of the work that people might be seeing either in the commercial space, if they're in Microsoft 365, work and school, or if somebody's been trying out the Microsoft account preview that lists is now available, and I put in air quotes, for consumers. Anything you can share just around list views and some of the work that's gone in around the design of it?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying I really love how this new look is going in the list.live space where you sign in with your Microsoft account. One of the things that I want to point out that I'm really excited about is we're pulling out views. So the things that you create, the content you create, instead of being crammed behind a little menu, we're making them as like full-on tabs. So I like, it's kind of similar to how the ribbon highlighted all these commands that were buried in the Word and Excel and PowerPoint code base that people just didn't know existed and thought they were new features. Well, now we're going to put your views up front and center. There's a lot of tiny things, too, that we've done to make the information design just a lot easier. We've cleaned up things like we used to have these giant fat down arrows for the column headers, and those just add extra noise. And so we reduced the size of those things. We've added icons for the column types. So you're no longer guessing, okay, what kind of information is going into this thing? Because it's oftentimes you're going to see text and text and text, but these are different types of text that you're dealing with. That, and also it'll help you recognize the differences between the columns. We've cleaned up some things here and there. And some of the things that I like to talk about that I actually haven't directly worked on is what I like to call the spaces between the frames, the spaces in the animation. So what I'm referring to is performance. So that's another thing that we've been working on as well with our engineers, is to make this a faster, smoother experience, not just in visuals and perception, but also in reality.
I've seen that in my own personal use, I know certainly what the team was working on, but specific to what you described around views with the tabs, when you move from different views that you've created, so moving from tab to tab, it's changing a lot. You might go from a calendar view to a gallery view to grid view to, working, with the board view. And I think it does two things. Like you said, definitely speeds things up. It's a really nice experience switching from tab to tab. But it is also something that just makes everything a little bit more discoverable. When people ask, what can lists do and how do I use them? I think there are fewer questions around using and creating views when it comes to this new design.
Yeah, so all the views are actually closer. That's the other thing too, is like pixels count. So the other thing about having those view tabs, which are at your fingertips, is that they're closer to the content that they represent. So they're right there on the bottom, not up there in the command bar. And we've also clustered other view type commands in there as well. Like you'll find the filter command now on the left side of those tabs. And you'll find the ability to add a new view right there, also in that same row with the add plus over there on the right as well. So there's a lot of reorganization we've done in the list.live. We're also looking at cleaning up that right side of the command bar. So it's a unified space for like your sharing and your permissions, rather than having all that icon soup that we like to call it up there.
So you said pixels count, which is, I think, my favorite quote so far. If I can use that, in the blog or to tweet it out, especially coming from you, with your design background. One of the things that I want to talk about beyond views gets us a little closer to what has shipped this previous month. And it's very pixel oriented in terms of introducing a little bit of a new user interface or a new element on the UI. And that is the applied filters. What I had hoped is maybe you could just give a little bit of a definition of what is an applied filter, but then get a little bit behind the scenes of why we chose the look and feel, how it works when you add filters or remove them. But can you just give us a little 101 plus a little behind the scenes?
It's one of my favorite things. So designers are actually at the core storytellers. And here's a story. Imagine you are working on a list, and at one point you wanted to narrow down this view to just certain users, for example. Maybe you've got like a list of like users or models of radios. And so it's like all these models that were made at this factory. You filter that down, you save the view, that's great. You go away, you come back later and suddenly you're like, hey, I'm not seeing all my content. What's going on here? And you actually don't have that column visible. Either it's scrolled off to the right or it's just not in the view. And so you're stuck wondering, what happened to all my content? Well, we've solved that. So now you don't have to guess that with these what I've been calling filter pills or applied filters. And it's an extra row that appears when you filter a list that's above the column headers that has little pills that show exactly how this view has been filtered. Whether it's temporary or it's been a saved view. So if you pop up that saved view again, you're not gonna worry. You're not gonna wonder, oh yeah, I filtered this down to this factory. And another thing in terms of recall is really important in understanding. So if you've applied a formatting to a particular column type that you're filtered on, it's going to pick up that formatting as well. So your choice pills are going to be the right color. And if they have an icon, they're going to be there. If you filtered by people, then those people are going to be there with either their avatar face or their initials. And so it's really easy to pick up on that. And it's also organized by column. So if you have multiple filters per column, you're going to see those grouped together. And so it's just easy to pick up on right away. One of my favorite things, design is about helping people. And the last thing we want you all to worry about is what happened to my content. We are the safeguards of that.
I love the concept of, obviously, front and center. What am I looking at? You know, if I did the filtering, I can see a reminder to me. But if I get onto a view that's either been adjusted or is a new view based on filtering, I can see the choices they made beyond trying to discover through what column is showing or what the URL structure is if I'm really hunting to discover it. My favorite thing, just so you know, is the little tiny X per filter, that if I want to remove a filter, And then right there, whether it is because I want to change a view or create a new view, or just see more or less content, it's just a perfect way to be able to take that action to adjust the view, to remove a filter, to see more content. And I really do think the design comes through strongly. I remember it in the early discovery phases that you all went through. And now, getting it into production as it is a really nice add.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I can't believe I forgot about that. That's like one of the best things of filter pills is the easy escape hatch. It's like, hey, how do I get back? Another thing that just struck me, some views don't have column headers, so you're not going to be able to see that. So things like a board view isn't going to have necessarily a column header. It's not going to show a tiny little icon that, once again, it's hieroglyphics that you have to interpret. You're going to see those pills on those views. You're going to see a pills on calendar view because there's no columns on calendar. Columns represent days in a calendar view, for example. It's solely non sequitur. So yes.
So we've talked about views. We got a really nice, clear understanding of applied filters. And we know that there's always some future just around the corner. And always interested to hear some of the things that may be visible already, but maybe not yet in commercial, or just a hint of some of the things that you're working on. Is there any area of lists that is okay to talk about and maybe frame around where you're at with the design and some things that people can look forward to?
So another thing I do want to point out is we at Microsoft are about empowering everyone on the planet to achieve more. And that includes, of course, accessibility, which also includes mental considerations and focus considerations. So one thing that we found is that having like an item slammed off to the right is off your peripheral. So we are in list.live have moved that now to be front and center. So now you have focus on the content that you're looking at. There's also other things that we're working on as well that may not be completely evident. Just keep in mind that we know that lists aren't something that you often necessarily work on by yourself, but you work on with other people. And we are looking at making that sort of thing a better experience.
And I'll just tell you, when I open up a list item and I get to see in the form, the view form that pops up front and center versus to the right, I actually have a pretty wide monitor. So way to the right is almost a chair move where I have to lean over to the right. But front and center with those forms looks great. And I think it probably solves a lot of the across multiple devices, web browsers, resolution, all of that in your world.
I have an ultra wide monitor myself, and it's like, wow, if I'm full screen, it's way off in the kitchen for me.
All right. So coming soon, less leaning is what I think I heard you say. That's the new feature. We're going to call it less leaning with lists.
Yes, we are humans, not rabbits. Our peripheral vision, it doesn't go that wide.
I think that is the design mantra of the century. Ben, thank you for your time today. Thank you for all the design work. I hope everybody that uses lists knows that Ben and his team are behind making it look great, open to feedback, lots of things to come. But for today, Ben, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
It is always so nice to talk with Ben, and it's also, I hope, same as I now have a very clear picture of what does Microsoft List look like now, and some of the behind the scenes of why from a design perspective. That carries us over to now start talking about teamwork. When you're working a one-on-one with one of your peers or one-to-many with your whole team, these are features that I hope you will benefit from, and it certainly is always great to know about them so you can see if it can be applied to your own teamwork. First up is right where we left off with Ben, just to round out the corners on Microsoft Lists applied filters. This is rolling out now and gives you a visual, clear way of what filters are applied, and it gives you an easy capability to then unapply them. You can remove and add right there on the page, and it really keeps it so that you don't have to go back into that right-hand column filter pane anymore. It's front and center, easy to apply, easy to remove, and get back to what it is you're trying to discover by filtering or unfiltering. Next up, Microsoft Loop is switching to a new .loop extension file type. Not only do we here at the Interzone want to keep you in the loop, we too want to let you know that Loop is becoming even more loopy as it adopts a new file suffix, .loop. If that sent your brain into a loop-de-loop like it did mine when I first tried to write it all out, well, just know this, loop components and pages will switch from using the .fluid extension to the .loop extension. This aligns with the overall Microsoft Loop brand and .loop, there it is. Next up, new files app experience in Teams. And I am going to say this one more time because it's been a highly requested ask to increase and improve the file experiences overall in Teams. So we're really excited to roll out this latest set of updates so that you can securely store, organize, and collaborate on all your files anytime from anywhere across all of your devices with this new Files app experience in Teams. There's a new Files app that brings a modern experience to all of your content from your chats, channels, or meetings, including any location from OneDrive or SharePoint. You can easily discover and locate files that are relevant right within the Teams app. This makes it possible to locate, share, and collaborate with OneDrive files without leaving the Teams app and switching between various other applications. There's an updated menu bar that will help you navigate to your content quickly, and you'll see things like a home experience where you can get back to your recently accessed files, or My Files, where you access your personal OneDrive files. There's a shared pivot so you can find files that were shared with you or that you've shared across Microsoft 365. There's a downloads pivot where you can locate files downloaded from Teams onto your computer. And there's also a quick access where you can pin document libraries or channel files tabs to access them more quickly. There's more to come in this space, as you know, lots of feedback always pouring in, and we want to get closer and closer to parity of the broader file experience no matter where you're at in Microsoft 365. So enjoy these new updates and know that we are currently still working on progress for parity across the files experience. Last, for teamwork, the SharePoint Create Pages and News experience now in the SharePoint app bar. With this update, you'll be able to start creating pages and news as an action from the SharePoint app bar. This means that no matter where you are in SharePoint, jump right in and start creating and communicating while staying in the flow of work, staying in the flow of SharePoint. So go to the SharePoint app bar, you select the Create button, and then select an option for either the creation of a SharePoint news post or a SharePoint page. And yes, this is alongside what was already there, the ability to create SharePoint sites or to create a new Microsoft lists list, or to work with the Microsoft 365 apps where you could create a new Word, PowerPoint, Excel, or OneNote file. There's a lot of innovation in this space. It's a really easy way to access it. If you just click in the upper left when you're on a SharePoint page or a SharePoint site or portal, you'll see the SharePoint app bar if it's been enabled. Click into that, click in the Create Experience button, and you'll see a whole lot of things that you can create. Now you can create pages and news from that same experience. So cheers to this update. Step right up to the SharePoint app bar and welcome this expansion of what you can do in SharePoint without leaving SharePoint. Now let us move on to related technology. The related technology this month really circulates around a couple of things that we posted out there, either as a blog or as an entire summit of its own. First was a blog that really relates on how Microsoft was recognized as a leader in the Forrester Wave for content platforms. So if you want to give this a read, I'll give you the short synopsis. You can learn how Microsoft can help you transform productivity and business processes in what we offer, which is AI and content management in the flow of work. The overall solution blends Microsoft Syntex, SharePoint, Microsoft Viva, and Microsoft Teams, and it's compelling to adopt, and we are pleased to be recognized by Forrester. I'll have a link in the show notes and a blog if you want to read further. There's an article by my peer Richard Riley that was posted to the Syntex community blog, and it gives you all the details of what the report is about, What are some of the things that Microsoft scored well in? Of course, a couple of areas, where they see as room for improvement. But alongside all of the other vendors, we scored very well, as people would say, high and to the right or very high on the wave. So give it a wave, ride the wave, check it out. I think you'll get a lot of insights in what our solution offers. And sometimes it'll just answer the questions. What are these technologies and how do they work well together? Next up is really a recap from the April 20 Microsoft Viva Summit. There was a lot of news, and of course there was a lot of thought leadership as well. If you like thought leadership style information from proven executives inside and outside of Microsoft, there are a lot of videos that were published on that same day as part of the summit. In addition to, there was the introduction of Copilot in Microsoft Viva. So Kurt Koenigsbauer wrote a great blog that summarizes all of this. I'm going to give again a quick summary that introduced a lot of concepts of Copilot across the suite. So in Viva Goals, you simplify goal settings by guiding leaders through the process of creating objectives and key results, OKRs, as well as simplifying goal management across the organization. Copilot in Viva Engage helps leaders create compelling and inspiring posts from simple prompts or trending topics within workplace communities and storyline conversations. Or in Viva Learning, Copilot suggests curating learning collections and concise knowledge summaries tailored to specific roles or development needs, making it easier and more effortless for leaders to help skill and train their workforce. In Viva Topics, employees can use a conversational interface to learn more about important topics, as well as see related topics and projects. And finally, with Copilot in Answers, this will help you construct your questions with the appropriate specificity and completeness, as well as extracts the pertinent topics to help you categorize your question, which really means it will also help route your questions to the right subject matter experts. And that's not all. The Viva team also announced beyond some of the Copilot integration, Viva Glint will now formally join the Viva Suite in July 2023. Additionally, we're excited to share that Copilot will come to Viva Glint, helping to summarize and analyze thousands of employee comments and providing leaders with a fresh way to explore feedback by asking questions through natural language. I highly encourage, if you are at all interested in the employee experience as it is offered by Microsoft. Microsoft Viva has a lot of moving parts and pieces to it, and adding Copilot to that will give you a lot of additional capabilities to help summarize, accelerate, discover, and it's a really great read, and some of the sessions are pretty short and sweet, so you'll see it in action, and you'll get a gist of where we're going with Microsoft Viva plus Copilot. I have a reminder that I wanted to provide to you. We just posted a blog about this, but the SharePoint 2013 workflow are now being retired or in the process of being retired. Since the release of SharePoint Workflows, Microsoft has evolved workflow orchestration to not only encompass SharePoint, but also the productivity services that you use throughout Microsoft 365 and, of course, beyond Microsoft 365. And with the continued investment in Power Automate as the universal solution for workflow from Microsoft, Microsoft is retiring SharePoint 2013 Workflows. So when will this happen? Starting April 2nd, 2024, SharePoint 2013 Workflows will be turned off for any newly created tenants in Microsoft 365. Also starting April 2nd, but in 2026, Microsoft will remove the ability to run or create and execute SharePoint 2013 workflows for existing tenants. If your organization still uses SharePoint 2013 workflows, they will no longer function after April 2nd, 2026. We recommend that customers move to Power Automate or other supported solutions. We have a number of resources for IT and a detailed support article if you have any questions. Lots to sift through, and certainly if it impacts you, lots of heads up, we hope, before the date of things getting turned off. And our last related item, and it's a fun one. I partnered with two Microsoft MVPs, Sue Hanley as co-author with beautiful illustrations by Rebecca Jackson. We published a cumulative evolutionary story for all, for admins, for end users, for devs, and it's called The Service That SharePoint Built. It's a fun read on the expanding app and platform nature of the evolution of SharePoint in and supporting Microsoft 365. I guarantee you there's a little something in there for everyone. So give it a read when you have a little downtime. Just go to aka.ms/story/built by SharePoint and get all the way to the end of the story. Do not miss the updated history of SharePoint timeline graphic and see maybe how far you've been with SharePoint. How far back does your SharePoint journey go? Let me know. It's a really fun way to see how SharePoint has evolved, and we hope the story lands to give you a sense of not only how it's evolved, but how it's plugged in into the overall Microsoft 365 cloud environment. Okay, let's move on into the future, just a little bit past the drawing board. It's already been drawn up, and now they're starting to warm the engines to roll things out. With great certainty into the future, I predict 2 new features coming in May 2023. Teaser number 1, Microsoft Viva display connected topics on people profile cards. It's a long name, and I think it describes itself. It's a really nice experience update for people experiences if you're working with Microsoft Viva topics. Teaser number 2, SharePoint Syntax is now getting image tagging. It'll recognize thousands of objects and help you automatically tag them with the appropriate metadata. And that is it this month's Peek Ahead. 2 teasers for you. We'll share all the details of both of them and more in the future SharePoint Roadmap Pitstop May 2023 edition next month. We have added learn more links per feature, plus a list of important resources in the show notes and in the corresponding blog post on the Microsoft Tech Community, published to the SharePoint Community blog. I hope you've enjoyed this roadmap pit stop. Time to pump the brakes and relax knowing that you are all caught up. If anything still leaves you scratching your head with open questions or concerns, please send us your thoughts and comments to theintrozone@microsoft.com. We're here to put our and your best change management foot forward, and thank you for taking that step with us into the cloud month after month. This is Mark Cashman saying April was a busy month indeed, and May is going to land more on the roadmap ahead.